He and Ashton will get along famously on that department. How was that Ashton Luke fic that you found, Buttons?
Lord. Drag me, why don't you? I didn't actually read it, I was too traumatized.
Just traumatized by its mere existence.
Hello everyone and welcome back to 4pixels. Coco and Kimia here with Buttons and Layplay. We are continuing the letter.
Wow, that was fast.
Yes. The tremors continue long after the last of my classes have ended. Although none of my students have commented on it, I've caught a few sharing anxious glances every time a pen slips from by hand or my shoulders tense whenever called. How unusual it must be for them to see the normally composed Miss Gales become a bundle of nerves. Even the most boisterous ones have given me less grief today. You think being on my fourth cup of tea would provide any sort of comfort. Or is this the fifth? Egad, why does counting matter now? The fact that I can't easily shake it off this time should tell me something. The last time this happened, I passed it off as some lapse in my part, after having been sick the week before.
And it is a natural conclusion.
Those are just stories, a centuries-old lore passed by the locals to keep children in line. What place doesn't have those? One of my Da's books even went as far as to describe them as a strong part of Isabella's culture. Tree giants, women who feed on unborn children straight from a mother's womb, or hell, there's even that story about a demon baby. All folklore that has never had a smidgen of truth in it, most probably told to scare off the natives there back in the old days.
Are we talking about the Omen? Damien? Damien Thornton? Is that what we're talking about now?
It's all for you, Damien.
Lord.
Much like every other one in every other place. The world is more universal than people care to think. But looking at it from where I'm standing now, after staring right into the eyes of that woman, after all the things I've been hearing and feeling, perhaps there's really more to that bloody letter than some awful Halloween prank.
Perhaps Isabella's right all along.
She must be feeling sick.
A terrible thing, if true. Though, that doesn't linger long, thankfully. Soon, the ringing of my mobile takes my attention away from it. An unfamiliar name flashes before me once the screen lights up, and my brows knit together. Marianne McCulloch. Staring across the screen, I try to remember when I entered this person on my contacts list. It takes a moment, but when it clicks, my eyes zero in on the book lying wide open on my table. Loaned out from the library almost a week ago. I met the woman there by sheer coincidence, a fellow history buff, apparently. We were after the same book, but in the end, she's given it to me, under the condition that I call her once I'm done. To be honest, I've completely forgotten about it until now, and, well, I haven't really taken a peek at it until today. Normally, I'd be done with the whole volume of this size a few days after taking it out, about 1 or 2, depending on how busy I am. But finding a chance to sit down and read through it has been more difficult lately than I anticipated. One moment I'm busy simply grading worksheets, attending a movie premiere the next, and somebody suddenly inviting me out for one reason or another. Days later, a friend stops showing up in her flat, right after worrying reports pop up in the local news. There simply isn't enough time to breathe and get a grip on things. I have been flipping through the pages of said books moments ago, though never really read anything and merely hoping for a distraction. To no avail. My phone gives out another ring, and this time I do not hesitate to answer.
Marianne?
Hello! Here I was starting to wonder if it was a bad time to call. Is it?
No, not at all. I dismissed my last class a few minutes ago. I'm pretty much free for the rest of the afternoon. Unless something comes up. Is this about last time? The book?
Not really. I was hoping to ask you about some other thing.
Oh, sure. What about?
You grew up in this city, didn't you?
It's a peculiar question to ask someone you've just met, but I answer her nevertheless. I'm more curious where she's heading with this by starting with that.
Born and raised, third-generation migrant. Why do you ask?
So, you must be familiar with the local lore. The, stories?
Quite. If I'm going to teach about history, I'd like to think I am, yeah? But a family friend would be a better person to ask. If you want, I can contact him for you.
No, let's just keep this thing between us, okay? It's nothing too big. Alright. I really don't know how else to put this without sounding a bit crazy. But things have been really...
This didn't happen when we played through Marianne, did it?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, I thought I was losing it for a second. I was like, oh boy. Migraine. Doing a number here.
Do you remember the mansion I mentioned back when we met? My current project?
In hindsight, I should have expected it'll lead to this. She must not have lived here long if she's just asking about this now. It didn't take a week with Isabella when she arrived, but that's Isabella, superstitious down to the last hair. Though, it won't be too far off to think Marianne has only started thinking about this recently. She's working on the damn house itself. I must admit, even I'm curious now, despite living here for so many years and having so many chances to look it up before.
The Ermengarde Mansion, yes?
Yes, that one. And, the thing is... Oh dear, this is a bad idea. You know what? Just forget I ever called you about this.
See things.
No, wait. It's all right. I don't mind.
There's a moment pause before she responds again. She's right in that. This is a silly thing to talk about, especially between, what I assume, two people who are pretty grounded on their beliefs with regards to these things. I won't blame her if she hesitates.
I can't believe I'm asking you about this.
It's fine. Why don't you just think of it as some form of research?
Well, all right. But after this, we're going to forget we ever had this talk.
My lips will be sealed. Now, what is it about the mansion?
Just, what do you know about it? The general gist. The place is past. What happened to the owners? Anything you can give me.
Let's see. To start off,
That hyphen. I do my best to give her a concise summary. From the time the house was commissioned 400 years ago, and who had it built. Up to the point it got deserted after the last heir's death, and the deed was passed on to Ermengarde's nearest relatives. Frankly, if it weren't for those urban legends persisting, the house would have already faded into obscurity long ago. Demolished, even. These are all nothing she probably hasn't heard of before, yet there's dissatisfaction in her tone once I finish.
That's all there really is to it?
As far as I know. There's this little bit I forgot to mention about Lady Charlotte Ermengarde's death, but most of those are just theories. Aside from that, this is really everything we've been teaching all these years. Should there be anything more?
No mention of any other weird stuff? Other crazy stories? Or a letter of some sort?
My blood runs cold. Any warmth and comfort the tea I've drank has given me prior has instantly been drained out of me. The phone creaks softly as my light hold on it turns into a firm grip. This whole letter bullshit is starting to turn into more than a coincidence.
Starting.
None that I've heard or
Just now.
read of. What does a letter have to do with this?
Oh, no. It was just something I came across. Ignore it. Random thoughts, you know? By the way, I need to run. Thanks for answering my questions.
She ends the call abruptly with only a clipped goodbye, leaving my mind heavy with even more thoughts. The mood around my classroom has gone considerably denser in light of what little I've gleaned from that conversation. I don't think Marianne's lying about her intent. Her interest is genuine, I'd give her that. But she's left a lot of things out.
But so have you.
Yeah. I get the sense she only asked because something's happening around her too. And if she hadn't mentioned the letter, I probably wouldn't have made the connection.
Just what the hell did we get ourselves into?
Of course, there's still a lot of confusing details in this. All of these are just assumptions. No concrete conclusions to be formed with what we have, and if we want to find out what we're really dealing with, I think Marianne's right. There might be something more to these stories, as absurd as it sounds. The very place that gave us that letter might tell us something beyond what we know. And tomorrow night, I have a few hours of that chance at the housewarming party. Totally not an exciting thought, since the place is privately owned now. I can't just wander around. But it's enough reason to keep the dread at bay as I step out of the room, ready to put an end to this day.
I mean, you can just wander around. You just don't want to.
True.
Thursday, October 27th. After the strange encounter at the little girl's room, Rebecca tried to remain composed throughout her day. As her classes ended, she received a phone call from Marianne McCullough, who asked unusual things about the Ermengarde mansion.
However, all those good vibes disappear into thin air when I run headfirst into Luke.
Wow, that luck.
There's really something in this man. Regardless of how much my opinion of him has changed over the span of a few hours, he simply blasts through every good impression people have of him, without care or thought. He doesn't even need to open his mouth, his mere presence does it. In all honesty, I think he's the kind of guy only a mother can love.
Hey, we're getting back to that thought.
Obviously, Who do you think's standing in front of you?
An ass.
Oh, come on, Daisy. You've done better than that. Losing your touch?
Luke, I don't have time for this. I'm heading home, and your face is the last thing I want to see before I leave. What do you want?
Belatedly, I notice his hand. Partly raised, almost poised for a knock. At a slight lift of an eyebrow, he quickly drops it to his side and turns to Kylie. She's standing a few steps away from him, holding her hands behind her back and toying at something on the floor with the tip of her shoe. Then he proceeds to make vague gestures at me and the child. He resembles a fish flopping for air with the way he's moving his arms, though I think he's trying to urge her to speak up.
Munchkin, I thought you wanted to tell her something.
You do it, Teal.
This wasn't my idea, darling.
Don't worry. I won't tell Tia what you told me the other day. And this morning.
Luke exhales, rolling his eyes at the ceiling, and maybe praying for the universe to grant him more patience. He knows a losing battle when he sees one. He may act worse than a 5-year-old throwing a tantrum at times, but he's no match for an actual child. Nothing better than being served a dose of his own medicine, huh? Once his frustration has been promptly let out, he points a rude finger at me. I do my best to stare the offending digit down, but I can already hear the demand before it's even out of his lips.
You, come with us.
What makes you think I will?
Because little Rugrat here is upset and worried, and it's your bloody fault. I've no idea what happened this morning, but if you don't come with us, I won't be hearing the end of it from her. So do me a favor, Daisy, and just be glad I'm inviting you.
You're asking for a favor, and you can't be bothered to be polite? I don't know. It's been a really busy day for me. I kind of miss my couch.
Daisy, you just say yes.
A pause follows, almost too dramatic. Afterwards, his face twists into something between a grimace and a smile. As it happens, he appears like he's in a lot of physical pain. You'd think the man is getting an aneurysm by simply being polite.
Please?
Tia said it'll be his treat.
What? I said no such thing, Munchkin.
No, you did.
I only agreed to this because you requested it. I'm under no obligation to feed her.
I promise I'll be quiet the next time I visit.
Oh, all right, but just one meal and make it the cheapest.
He and Ashton will get along famously on that department. How was that Ashton Luke fic that you found, Buttons?
Lord.
Drag me, why don't you? I didn't actually read it, I was too traumatized.
Just traumatized by its mere existence.
Just, she sees it in her nightmares, just the text floating in the void. On a different note, the offer of free dinner does sound enticing, however half-heartedly given it is. Mostly because Kylie has wisely put on her puppy eyes, and by the second, I find all my choices slipping away from me.
See, Miss Pink? It'll be fun! You don't have to feel sad anymore, okay?
Oh, well,
My mobile buzzes from my pocket, cutting me mid-sentence, and for a second I'm spared from the act of giving an answer I'll regret either way. Fishing the gadget out, I wave a hand at him and excuse myself. A disgruntled expression is on Luke's face before I turn away. I'd be lying if I say it didn't amuse me. He's as eager to be done with this as I am, but what can I do? Checking a message from Ashton shows up. Hey Becca, I'll be around Salem well this evening. Need to meet someone in the area. I might have to drop by yours and Isabella's place after. See ya. Oh,
Okay.
just the usual. Unlike what he does to Zachary, Ashton has the decency to let us know when he's dropping by or as he's in the area for some business. From the way it's phrased, it sounds to be the latter. Either way, I'm glad he's at least aware of that boundary. Not that Isabella's ever going to let him leave the building unscathed if he ever pulls the same stunt he does with the other man. I cringe to imagine what she'll do to him.
Savera straight up murders him.
Smacks him with the broken lock.
With
Like
13
Sean
broken
Connery.
locks.
Sighing, I slip the gadget back to my pocket. But looking up to see Luke's utter impatience on his face, I now face a different dilemma. The two of them are still waiting, and knowing the kind of person Luke is, this is already a grand gesture of goodwill coming from him. All to please his godchild. His denials aside, it's easy to tell he's really fond of Kylie from his actions alone. I kinda hate to ruin that.
Well, Daisy, we're waiting here.
On the other hand, there's Ash. His message doesn't exactly imply he's going to wait, or he's expecting me to be there, but there are matters I hope to discuss with him in person, to put simply. Housewarming party matters. With inviting Isabella out of the question, I only have Zachary and Ashton. Although the former has already made it clear he'll be busy this week. And, well, Ashton has been my first choice from the start. Even if he detests attending gatherings like that. It's company that counts. We can be miserable together. But that's a problem, isn't it? He hates them, and it's very likely his answer will be a flat no. I'd rather not hear that. If, by some miracle, he agrees to it, he'll probably be sulking the whole party. Not really a tough choice when you put it like that. Still, tough choice, but I have to pick one.
I'm tempted to go with Luke and Kylie.
Please, the small and totally not possessed child.
I honestly don't know. I'm fine with either.
So here's a bullshit kind of broken way to think about it. We've already done the housewarming party, and as far as I'm aware, Ashton isn't there, regardless.
He was.
He was? Shit.
He was.
Yeah.
Maybe I
like-
just suck at remembering literally anything.
I mean, he just appeared for like a second.
Yeah, and then Hannah started teasing Becca about staring at him.
Oh, that's right. Still, since we've already had it happen, we know he's going to be there regardless.
Yeah, that's true. I'm good with okay, but only because Kylie asked. Tori,
Same.
you have any thoughts?
I'm good with either.
Okay.
Let's go with them then.
Whoops.
In the end, it's my own fondness for Kylie that wins out. Chances are I'll only have to endure his presence for an hour or so. If it lasts more than that, I can make up an excuse, a sudden call from a friend, or things to work on. It doesn't seem so bad when I think of the pros and cons. At best, it'll be a quiet dinner. At worst, it'll be an awkward affair we're both eager to be rid of. I'm leaning more on the latter happening, hoping for the former, of course.
Okay, but only because Kylie asked.
Kylie's face instantly lights up. For the third time today, she tackles me into a hug before pulling away and dragging me by the hand towards the building's exit.
That's alright. I'm sure Tio doesn't mind. He let me pick where we're going to eat. Don't worry, it's just close.
Luke follows closely behind, and perhaps out of some desire to keep the dead air away, I can't resist throwing in a quip.
Keep your distance. You better not do anything funny, you hear?
I'm the one who should keep my distance. May I remind you who approached me first and what you did right after?
Oh, I remember it clearly. But perhaps it's you who needs a reminder. You seem to have never learned your lesson. Care we give it another try? Maybe this time it'll stick.
Maybe this time it'll stick. You think you're scary? I'll show you what's scary.
To my surprise, his tone lacks the usual sardonic note in it, and briefly I pause to stare at him. He quickly shuts his mouth right after and walks ahead of us.
Did any of you note the spooky fog around him?
No.
No.
Right at the tail end there before his character faded off.
I did not see that. That's worrisome.
Guess we'll die.
All talk and no trousers like the usual, and for the better part of our walk, except for Kylie's excited chatter, we don't speak. Somehow, I have this strange feeling I'm already getting used to this kind of banter with him. I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing. And amidst this newfound friend...
You can say it, you can say it!
How dead do you feel on the inside?
Friendship? Dare I call it that? Ashton's message lays forgotten and abandoned in my pocket. Of all the places nearest to the school, Kylie picks this one, and waiting for food to be served is as awkward as I imagined it would be. Not the bad sort, though. The pleasant kind. Surprisingly, Luke's an okay bloke when he tries. When he tries. So long as you're willing to look past the tactless remarks, or we're not exchanging acerbic quips. It's clear he's making an effort for this to be as fun as possible for the 6-year-old by being chattier, even going as far as to laugh when Kylie's story calls for it. It's an interesting thing to hear from the man. More than once, I catch his frequent cheesed-off expression easing whenever he looks at the girl.
And your friend? Did you make up with her?
Yep. She said she just saw something she didn't like. She didn't accept the jellies, though. She told me to give it to you instead. She knows you like the red ones, too.
Very well. Hand it to me later. I'll bring some of them home. I think your Tia would love to have some.
What a terrible liar. He says he dislikes the idea of having children of his own, but it's easy to see some part of him genuinely wants them. What's stopping him? Once Kylie wanders to the nearby bookshelves, after having lost interest in the conversation, however, we both revert back to silence. On our own, we have little to talk about, aside from a few questions about the other here and there. At one point, it does veer on local politics and history. He's surprisingly versed with it that he can hold a decent conversation without throwing a jibe. Nothing too personal is ever mentioned so far, though. It's too early for those. And besides, I don't like him enough to speak of every minute detail of my life. Better keep it strictly between the silence and the casual repartee. This whole thing already looks and feels wrong on so many levels. I'm quite sure he feels the same. So when another bout of silence hits us and becomes too much, I've taken to finding something else to occupy myself. Toying with my mobile, turning it from hand to hand while we wait for our respective meals. But it'll be a complete lie if I say I'm not waiting for some intervention. And with that, we will end the episode right here. Thank you guys for joining us, and see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
It's like this outside the courtroom.
God, Phoenix.
Oh dear.
What's he talking about? Investigators do that all the time. Here's a picture of this evidence. Does it ring a bell? What's wrong with him?
Many, many things. He is but a young nubile attorney.
Nubile.
See the word nubile.
How is he nubile?
Young nubile attorneys is my most common porn search.
Hello everyone and welcome back. Here we are starting the second case of the Ace Attorney Phoenix Wright series.